Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It is my privilege and honor to be invited by the Bangalore International Center to make a presentation on Vachanas, the truths, the eternal truths of the Veerashaivas. It was a chance encounter at a friend's place that drew me into the world of Vachanas. I noticed a picture of Basavanna in her puja, and I asked her why this picture was there among other deities. She said, I am a Lingayat and we worship him. With that rather naive question began my quest to learn more about Vachanas and their creators. I am no expert on this subject, but I wish to share my findings with all of you. I will sing some of the Vachanas today, and I will be accompanied on the mridangam by my son, Abhirama Nitin. Let us now go back roughly 900 years. The Alvars and Nayanmars had done their bit for Vaishnavism and Shaivism respectively. In Karnataka, the influence of Tamil Shaivism was quite high. There were also other branches of Shaivism, namely the Kapalikas and Kalamukas. We focus our attention on a few districts in North Karnataka, namely Bagalkot, Bidar, and Bijapur. Here, the weak Chalukyan rulers were overthrown by the Kalachuryas, who had a meteoric rise and fall. Around the 12th century, there was great political and social turbulence in that region. The dynasties that ruled were constantly at war with each other. There was murder, arson, looting, and above all, heavy taxation burdened the common man. Along with the caste system, there was also untouchability. There were conflicts between the Shaivites, the Vaishnavites, the Jains, and the Muslims. Life for the common man was unfortunately a huge struggle. Things had reached such a nadir, there had to be a revolution of sorts. And what a revolution it was. The Sharana revolution that spanned less than 100 years, according to some, constituted the beginning of Veerashaivism. Some say, of course, that Veerashaivism is far more ancient. There is a Sanskrit work by name Siddhanta Shikhamani that has this verse giving us the etymology of the term Veerashaiva. Vishabdenochyate vidya Shiva Jivaika bodhika tasyam ramante ye shaiva Veerashaivastute matha. Simply translated, this means the letter V stands for Vidya or knowledge that Shiva and Jiva are one. Those who revel in this concept are said to be Veerashaivas. Some say that Veerashaiva means militant or heroic faith in Shiva. We will discuss today the events of the Veerashaiva or Sharana movement, its principal characters, and the universal truths or the Vachanas that emerged from this churning. Our hero is undoubtedly Basavanna, the founder of this movement. Basavanna was born to a pious Brahmin couple in the year 1106 AD. His birthplace was Manigavalli, and his parents died early. So he was brought up by his foster parents, Madiraja and Madambike. He is supposed to have undergone the thread ceremony, but by the time he was 16, stifled by the caste system, he was restless and he left his place to go to Kudala Sangama. There, a guru, Jataveda Muni, taught him the scriptures. Yet, Basavanna was not quite happy. One night, the Lord appeared in his dream and told him to go to Mangalavada, where King Bijjala reigned. Basavanna was distraught because he did not want to leave his Lord at Kudala Sangama. And this place is situated in Bagalkot district at the confluence of the Krishna and Ghataprabha rivers. So Basavanna did not do anything about what he had heard in his dream. Yet again, the following night, the Lord again appeared in his dream and told him that he would find a linga in the mouth of the Nandi the next day. And it so happened that when Basavanna was leaning against the Nandi in the temple, he found a linga inside its mouth. Following this divine dictate, he left to go to Mangalavada, and there very soon he found himself as the finance minister for the king Bijjala, who ruled from Kalyana. Basavanna married two women, both very pious, Gangambike and Neelambike. What happens now is of utmost interest to us, because Basavanna, with the help of his family members, opened the doors of his house, literally the Mahamane, to all the Sharanas. Who were these Sharanas? They were people who came from all strata of society. A Sharana is one who is a direct particle of the divine spark of Shiva. He or she is a living, liberated soul. In the caste-ridden society of those times, Basavanna's bold initiative was indeed revolutionary. Basavanna also did something very meaningful, and he set up a place called the Anubhava Mantapa. In this institution, Sharanas gathered to discuss their spiritual experiences, and the words they spoke at the Anubhava Mantapa became Vachanas. The term Vachana was in use earlier to denote a piece of prose, but the Vachanas spoken by the Sharanas are the Vachanas we will hear today. They were spontaneous expressions. The Vachana does not follow the rules of rhyme and meter. They are in Kannada, of course. Why was Kannada chosen? Because it was the language of the common man, as opposed to Sanskrit, the language of the learned. Each Vachana is dedicated to the deity of the Vacharakaara, or the creator of the Vachana. For example, Basavanna dedicated all his Vachanas to Kudala Sangama Deva, the deity at Kudala Sangama. So you will find this mudra, ankita or stamp in all his Vachanas. Thus we know that this Vachana has been uttered by Basavanna. Delving into Basavanna's Vachanas, we cannot but be moved by his sense of devotion or bhakti. Compared to all other Vacharakaaras, it is said that Basavanna's Vachanas show a lot of devotion. Vachanadalli ನಾಮಾಮೃತ ತುಂಬಿ ನಯನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೂರುತಿ ತುಂಬಿ ಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ನೆನಪು ತುಂಬಿ ಕಿವಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕೀರುತಿ ತುಂಬಿ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಚರಣ ಕಮಲದೊಳಗಾನು ತುಂಬಿ. This is the Vachana, and let me translate it for you. Lord, my tongue is sweet with nectar of thy name. My eyes are all aflame with beauty of thy face. The very thought of thee haunts all my nights and days. My ears are filled, you see, with music of thy praise. Lord, I am a bee in the lotus of thy feet. Now let us look at what we have lost in this translation. It is the word tumbi. Initially in the Vachana, it is used in the sense of fullness. My eyes are filled, my mind is filled, my ears are filled. And in the end, he says, I am a tumbi, I am a bee hovering around the lotus flowers that are your feet, O Lord of Kudala Sangama. So this is the way he has used the metaphor, and he has been compared to the great poet Kalidasa himself in his usage of metaphors. Let me now render this Vachana to you. It is in the ragam Abhiri and set to Aditalam. ವಚನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಮಾಮೃತ ತುಂಬಿ ವಚನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಮಾಮೃತ ತುಂಬಿ ನಯನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೂರುತಿ ತುಂಬಿ ನಯನ teachings in the Vachanas are unambiguous. Look at this one. It says the Sharana must have the constancy to say, I will not have another's wealth. I will not have another's wife. I will not have another's God. The Sharana must have the constancy to say, Linga and Jangama are one. Let us look at that a little later. The snake metaphor is a favorite for many Vacharakaaras, including Vasavanna. To decry hypocrisy and superstition, Vasavanna says in a Vachana that a snake charmer and his wife set out to find a bride for their son. Halfway, they turn back because they see a bad omen. And what was that? It was another snake charmer and his wife. In this Vachana, he questions the logic behind prevailing blind practices. He says, on seeing a snake statue, they ask to worship it. On seeing a real snake, they ask to kill it. When a pious man comes hungry, they ask him to go away. When they see a lifeless idol, they try to feed it. A.K. Ramanujan's translation of a Vachana is indeed very, very special, and I will read this translation out to you. The rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, the body, the shrine, the head, a cupola of gold. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers, things standing shall fall, but the moving ever shall stay. The moving ever is, of course, the soul, which is the permanent thing, and the body is, after all, very superficial and transient. So this Vachana I will sing now for you, and it has been tuned by the violin maestro Sri Lalgudi G. Jayaraman in the ragam Durga and Thalam Khandachapu. Ullavaru Shivalayava Maduvaru. ಉಳ್ಳವರು ಶಿವಾಲಯವ ಮಾಡುವರು, ನಾನೇನು ಮಾಡಲಿ ಬಡವನಯ್ಯ. ಉಳ್ಳವರು ಶಿವಾಲಯವ ಮಾಡುವರು, ನಾನೇನು ಮಾಡಲಿ ಬಡವನಯ್ಯ. ಎನ್ನ ಕಾಲೇ ಕಂಬ ದೇಹವೇ ದೇಗುಲ, ಶಿರವೇ ಹೊನ್ನ ಕಲಶವಯ್ಯ. ಎನ್ನ ಕಾಲೇ ಕಂಬ ದೇಹವೇ ದೇಗುಲ, ಶಿರವೇ ಹೊನ್ನ ಕಲಶವಯ್ಯ. ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವ ಕೇಳಯ್ಯ, ಸ್ಥಾವರಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳಿವುಂಟು ಜಂಗಮಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳಿವಿಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ಥಾವರಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳಿವುಂಟು ಜಂಗಮಕ್ಕೆ ಅಳಿವಿಲ್ಲ. ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವ, ಕೂಡಲ before we get carried away by the beauty of Basavana's Vachanas, let us quickly go back to the Anubhava Mantapa set up by him. The president, so to speak, of this was a very interesting personality. Allow me to read to you one of his Vachanas. I saw the fragrance fleeing when the bee came. I saw the intellect fleeing when the mind came. I saw the temple fleeing when God came, O Guheshwara. And he was Allama Prabhu. How different is this from Basavana's devotion-filled Vachanas? That sums up the personality of Allama Prabhu for you. Very little is known about him, his early life. His birthplace is believed to be Balligavi, and it is said he was the son of a dance teacher or a dancer, and he was the drummer at the temple, at Madhukeshwara temple there. Allama is supposed to have fallen in love, and unfortunately, the lady died, and he wandered around in grief like a mad man. And one day, when he was in a grove, he's supposed to have noticed the tip of a kalasha sticking out from the ground. Exploring further, he discovered a shrine, and there a guru, Animishaya, gave him a linga in his hand and breathed his last. So Allama was left holding this linga, and he attained enlightenment then and there. We have seen Basavana find a linga in the mouth of the Nandi, and here Allama has been given a linga by his guru. What is the significance of this linga? To a Veerashaiva, the whole world is in his hands, so to speak. The Stavara linga is the linga that we worship in temples. And the followers of Basavana wear a miniature linga around their neck at all times. And this linga is referred to as the Ishtalinga. Lingavanta means one who wears the Ishtalinga on their body. This Ishtalinga, to the Veerashaiva, is his personal god. He holds it in his palm and offers puja to it. Just like the thread ceremony, the Veerashaivas undergo the linga investiture ceremony, where they are initiated into the linga worshipping procedures. Both genders, male and female, undergo this. Veerashaivas wear the sacred ash on their forehead. Even facts like this are there in the Vachanas. There is a Basavana's Vachana which says very beautifully, the lakes ornament the Naidile flower. The seas ornament the wave. The skies ornament the moon. Woman's ornament her virtue. The ornament of Kudala Sangama's devotees, the vibhuti on their forehead. Nirige Naidile Shringara is the beautiful Vachana which has been set to music by my guru, Vidushri Srimati Neela Ram Gopal, and I will now render this. Nirige Naidile Shringara Nirige Naidile Shringara ಶೃಂಗಾರ ಗಗನಕ್ಕೆ ಚಂದ್ರಮನೆ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ನಾರಿಗೆ ಗುಣವೇ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ಗಗನಕ್ಕೆ ಚಂದ್ರಮನೆ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ಶರಣರ ನೊಸಲಿಗೆ ವಿಭೂತಿಯೇ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ಶರಣರ ನೊಸಲಿಗೆ ವಿಭೂತಿಯೇ ಶೃಂಗಾರ That Vachana was in Ragam Brindavani and Aditalam. To a Veerashaiva, God is one, the only one. He transcends the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra. The Jangama refers to a traveling mendicant, also refers to a traveling mendicant who preaches the philosophy of Basavana. At that time, during Basavana's time, there is supposed to have been 190,000 such Jangamas who travelled far and wide preaching his philosophy. Going back to Allama, it seems as if he wanted generations to puzzle over his Vachanas. He created several of them in a cryptic mode, having multiple layers of meanings. These are known as Bedagina Vachanas. Let me read one of them, a translation of one of them to you. The deer with the tiger's head. The tiger with the deer's head. The two joined at the waist. It's not the tiger, not the deer, but something else. Come to eat next. Look, when the body without the head grazes, look, O Guheshwara, the leaf vanishes. When we unfold the layers of meaning in this Vachana, this is what we have to assume. The tiger is Kala Vyagra, or time. The deer, the bewitching Maya. And the eating beast, Prarabdha, or the inheritance of the past, the baggage that we all carry. Allama preached his philosophy of monism or non-dualism loud and clear in his Vachanas. I will now render one of them. This has been set to music by my Guru Srimati Neela Ram Gopal and in Ragam Sindhu Bhairavi and set to Kandachapu Thalam. Deha bhava balidallade jiva bhava baliyadu jiva bhava balidallade bhakti bhava balavadadu deha bhava balidallade jiva bhava baliyadu jiva bhava balidallade bhakti bhava balavadadu arivu tale ತೋರಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಅರಿವು ತಲೆ ತೋರಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಕುರುಹು ನಷ್ಟವಾಗದು ಕುರುಹು ನಷ್ಟವಾದಲ್ಲದೆ ಮಾಯೆ ಹಿಂಗದು ಅರಿವು ತಲೆ ತೋರಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಕುರುಹು ನಷ್ಟವಾಗದು, ಕುರುಹು ನಷ್ಟವಾದಲ್ಲದೆ ಮಾಯೆ ಹಿಂಗದು ದೇಹ ಭಾವ ಬಳಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದು ಕಾರಣ ಕಾಯದ ಜೀವದ ಹೋಲಿಗೆ, ಇದು ಕಾರಣ ಕಾಯದ ಜೀವದ ಹೋಲಿಗೆ. ಅಳಿವ ಭೇದವ ತಿಳಿಯಬಲ್ಲಡೆ ಗುಹೇಶ್ವರ ಲಿಂಗದ ಅರಿವು, ಗುಹೇಶ್ವರ 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 ಅಳಿವ ಭೇದವ ತಿಳಿಯಬಲ್ಲಡೆ ಗುಹೇಶ್ವರ ಲಿಂಗದ ಅರಿವು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗುವುದು ಕಾಣ ಸಿದ್ಧರಾಮಯ್ಯ. ಅಳಿವ ಭೇದವ ತಿಳಿಯಬಲ್ಲಡೆ ಗುಹೇಶ್ವರ ಲಿಂಗದ ಅರಿವು ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗುವುದು ಕಾಣ ಸಿದ್ಧರಾಮಯ್ಯ. ದೇಹ ಭಾವ ಬಳಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಜೀವ ಭಾವ ಬಳಿಯದು, ಜೀವ ಭಾವ ಬಳಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಭಾವ ಬಡವಡದು. ಗುಹೇಶ್ವರ. As you might have guessed, Allama's Ankita was Guheshwara. He played a very big role in the life of a Sharana who was perhaps the greatest of them all after Sri Basavanna. And she was extra special because she was a woman. Akka Mahadevi. Yes. And there were not one or two, but there were 33 women Sharanas, and they are referred to as Sharaneyara. But of course, Akka Mahadevi is revered as the best of them all. She was born in Uduttadi, a village in present-day Shimoga district. At the age of 10, it is said she was initiated into Shiva worship, and the Lord in her place was Chenna Mallikarjuna. The king is supposed to have fallen in love with her and wanted to marry her, but she was not for it. It is said that yes, she did have to marry him, but later she renounced him and her family and went to Kalyana and to the Anubhava Mantapa, eager to join the band of Sharanas, the group of them. And there, Allama Prabhu, the president, wanted to prove to the world that Akka Mahadevi was no ordinary Sharana. An epic conversation took place between these two, and it has been recorded for posterity through Vachanas. So, Allama Prabhu asks Akka, "Why come you hither, pray, O woman in the budding bloom of youth?" At the word woman, our Sharanas see red. If you can tell your husband's identity Come sit, else pray be gone. If you desire the joy of our Sharanas fellowship, tell who your husband be, O mother. And you can imagine Akka Mahadevi surrounded by Sharanas and all their eyes focused on her and what she was going to say. And she boldly said, Hara, for endless time have I made penance, so you might become my wedded lord. Mine own sent me to him who holds the moon, smeared ash upon my brow, and tied the bracelet to my wrist, so I might be Chenna Mallikarjuna's own. And of course, you must have heard about this, that Akka was naked, having shed all her clothes, and she was only covered by her tresses, her long hair. And Allama asks her, why do you do this? And Akka says, unless the fruit is ripe within, the outer peel will never lose its gloss. I covered myself lest sights of seeds of love should do you hurt. Is any harm in this? The veil of hair was not meant to cover her shame. It was done so that others may not be distracted. She couldn't care less. The Sharanas, of course, accepted Akka into their fold and celebrated her. I wonder if Akka sang this Vachana that I am about to sing to you when she was asked if she would marry a mortal. And look at the comparisons she makes. She says, would the peacock rather not dance on a mountain than on a small grassy mound? Would the swan rather not splash and play in the lake rather than in a puddle? The kokila's music will emerge only when the mango bursts into bloom, and not otherwise. The bee will enjoy the flower that is fragrant and none other. I will enjoy only my Deva, Chenna Mallikarjuna, as my heart dictates, and none other. Do listen and understand. So, Chenna Mallikarjuna is her Ankita. If you ever hear a Vachana with those words, then you know that it is Akka Mahadevi's rendering. The Vachana that I am about to sing to you has been tuned by Sri Aditya Prakash, and it is in Ragam Kalyani and Talam, Adi Talam. Giriyalallade hullu moradiyallaaduvude navilu giriyalallade hullu moradiyallaaduvude navilu kolakalade kiruvalla ಕೆಳಸುವುದೇ ಹಂಸೆ ಕೊಳಕಲದೆ ಕಿರುವಳ್ಳ ಕೆಳಸುವುದೇ ಹಂಸೆ ಮಾಮರ ತಳಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಸರಗಿವುದೇ ಕೋಗಿಲೆ ಮಾಮರ ತಳಿದಲ್ಲದೆ ಸರಗೈವುದೇ ಕೋಗಿಲೆ ಪರಿಮಳವಿಲ್ಲದ ಪುಷ್ಪ ಕೆಳಸುವುದೇ ಭ್ರಮರ ಪರಿಮಳವಿಲ್ಲದ ಪುಷ್ಪ ಕೆಳಸುವುದೇ ಭ್ರಮರ ಎನ್ನ ದೇವ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ಎನ್ನ ದೇವ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನಂಗಲ್ಲದೆ ಅನ್ಯ ಕೆಲಸುವುದೇ என்ன மன என்ன தேவ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನಂಗಲ್ಲದೆ ಅನ್ಯ ಕೆಲಸುವುದೇ ಎನ್ನ ಮನ ಬೇಳಿರೆ ಕೆಳದಿಯರಿರ ಬೇಳಿರೆ ಕೆಳದಿ ಹರಿರ ಎನ್ನ ದೇವ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ಎನ್ನ ದೇವ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ಎನ್ನ ದೇವ ಚೆನ್ನ ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ. So Akka was very, very firm in her conviction that her Lord was Channamallikarjuna alone. This experience, this mystical experience, has been compared to other mystics like Andal, who was one of the Vaishnavite Alvars. And Andal says in her poem, "If you ever marry me to an ordinary mortal, I will end my life." And Akka was also equally firm about that. She says, "Chenna Mallikarjuna is my husband. O brother, no one else can be my man. I ask you to feel her pain and suffering as a woman at the hands of prying men." As I read this Vachana to you, don't hold me. Don't stop me. Let go of my hand, the hem of my sari. Don't you know of the worst hell for those break the promise made in black and white? You shall be doomed if you touch the woman married to Channamallikarjuna. Akka wandered again and reached the forest of Sri Sailam, where she is said to have attained Lingaikya, becoming one with her Lord finally. About 2 centuries prior to Basavanna lived a man by the name Jedara Dasimaya in the village called Moodanuru. And he is said to have been weaving. And during this time, it is said that he had an experience of Shiva and has given us many Vachanas even prior to Basavanna. And one of the very important learnings from this is encapsulated in this phrase, Kayakave Kailasha, meaning work is worship. The Sharanas believed that they did not have to renounce their life to attain spiritual upliftment. They went about their chores, their normal vocations, and yet they attained awakening and had the experience of the Almighty. This is something very special and very different. For example, Dasimaya went back to his profession of weaving and set up many looms, and even today some of those looms exist in his village. Let us look at one of his vachanas, a translation where he asks many searching questions. And remember, this was probably 1,100 years ago. Did a woman's soul have breast and braid? Did the priest's soul have a sacred thread? Did the lowly born, the lowest, hold a broom in his soul? How can the fools of the world know the knot knit by thee, O Ramanatha? He addressed all his vachanas to his deity Ramanatha. And I will sing a vachana of his in which he asks the Lord, "You have kept fire in tree in such a way that it does not burn. You have kept melted butter in foamy milk in such a way its fragrance is hidden. You have kept soul in body in such a way it is not seen by any. Lord, I am amazed at the way you fuse the differences, Ramanatha. This Vachana has been set to music in the Ragam Arabi and in Thala Misra Chapu by the eminent Vidushi Dr. T.S. Satyavati.
ಮರದೊಳಗೆ ಮಂದಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಉರಿಯದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ಮರದೊಳಗೆ ಮಂದಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಉರಿಯದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ನೋರೆವಾ ಮಂದಾಕಿಯ ಉರಿಯದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ನೋರೆವಾಲೊಳಗೆ ತುಪ್ಪದ ಕಂಪಿಲ್ಲದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ಮರದೊಳಗೆ ಮಂದಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಉರಿಯದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ಶರೀರದೊಳಗಾತ್ಮ ಶರೀರದೊಳಗಾತ್ಮನ ನಾರು ಕಾಣದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ಶರೀರದೊಳಗಾತ್ಮನ ನಾರು ಕಾಣದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ಶರೀರದೊಳಗಾತ್ಮನ ನಾರು ಕಾಣದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ ನೀ ಬೆರೆಸುವ ಭೇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆರೆಗಾದೆನಯ್ಯ ರಾಮನಾಥ ರಾಮನಾಥ ಬೆರೆಸುವ ಭೇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆರೆಗಾದೆನಯ್ಯ ರಾಮನಾಥ ಬೆರೆಸುವ ಭೇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆರೆಗಾದೆನಯ್ಯ ರಾಮನಾಥ ಮರದೊಳಗೆ ಮಂದಾಗ್ನಿಯ ಉರಿಯದಂತಿರಿಸಿದೆ
During Basavana's time, following in the footsteps of Dasimaya, several Sharanas came from the working class. Madivala Marchayya was a washerman, Medara Ketayya was a basket maker, Hadapada Appanna was a barber, Ambigara Chaudaya, a fisherman, an oarsman. Now, let us look at one of Ambigara Chaudaya's Vachanas, where he says, "Here I come, a ferryman, without a body, to the great flowing river. If you pay the price, your mind that grasps and lets go, I shall take you across the great stream to the end, to the village without words or limits." So you can experience infinite, the infinite. If you come with me, is the message. And look at this untouchable, very pitiable, untouchable Sharana, Doharakakaya, who says, "Oh, I am doomed. I have not touched you even after touching you. Cannot my heart touch you, even if my hands cannot?" I cannot marvel at the penetration, I cannot marvel sufficiently, I should say, at the penetration power of this mystic thought that inspired people from all strata of society to become not just poets, but philosophers and realized souls. Unfortunately, such an ideal scenario did not last very long. Caste related clashes took place, and in the widespread violence that happened, several Sharanas fled Kalyana. Even Basavanna had to go away to Kudala Sangama, where he attained Lingaikya. And in this situation, the Vachanas were lost for a good period. And we are very fortunate that the Vachanas survived this upheaval. And how did they? It is interesting to note that at the Anubhava Mantapa, a librarian by the name Shantarasa was given the job of taking down these Vachanas as they were being spoken. And between 13th and 16th centuries, Vachana writing virtually disappeared. And in the 15th century, a consolidation of Vachanas was undertaken and resulted in the work Shunya Sampadane. And it is a repository of Vachanas for us. The Vachanas certainly inspired a sect of people later in a very different way, and these people were the Haridasas, who took the Vachana further and evolved it into the Kriti or the Devarnama format. And the Haridasas, as you all know, were the followers of Guru Madhvacharya, preaching the Dvaita philosophy. In the 19th century, when Halakatti, a Vachana scholar, took this Vachanas, some of them, to a Christian missionary press for publishing it, he was told, and I quote, "Because in this work of yours, the same teachings have been propounded, which are also propounded in our faith. Its publication may come in the way of propagation of our faith." So they refused to print it. And I think no further proof is needed to substantiate the statement that Vachanas contain universal truths. And now, the mammoth task of translating 2,500 Vachanas into 10 Indian languages and 4 foreign languages has been completed. And we have the world's largest statue of Sri Basaveshwara in Basava Kalyan. Today it's known as Basava Kalyan, and it is in Bidar district. The statue stands at a tall 108 feet. And I will conclude my presentation by depicting abhinaya or facial expressions for Vachana of Sri Basavanna to drive home the important message of the Vachanas, which is that the Lord is not very interested or very eager, or really he doesn't care too much about things that we consider as very critical to please him. And he is actually interested in something else. So Basavanna says, Shiva is neither a Nada Priya or a Veda Priya. He is not fond of Nada, or he is not fond of Vedas. Because you know what happened to somebody who tried to please him with nada? Here he brings the story of Ravana, who was actually killed in battle. But he pleased Lord Shiva with his Veena skills. Yet he suffered the fate at the hands of Rama. And then he says, the Vedas, Brahma, he's the creator of the Vedas. And what happened to him? Shiva actually took off one of his heads. So that's the fate of Brahma. So this is what happened to a person who tried to please Shiva with Nada. And this is what happened to a person who tried to please Shiva with Veda. But what is Shiva pleased with? Wait till you hear the end of this Vachana. I thank you all for patiently listening to this presentation.
ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನಲ್ಲ ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನಲ್ಲ ವೇದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ವೇದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನಲ್ಲ ವೇದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ವೇದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನಲ್ಲ ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ನಾದವನುಡಿಸಿದ ರಾವಣಂಗರ್ಧಾಯುಷ್ಯ ನಾದವನುಡಿಸಿದ ರಾವಣಂಗರ್ಧಾಯುಷ್ಯ ವೇದವನೋದಿದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಶಿರಹೋಯ್ತು ವೇದವನೋದಿದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಶಿರಹೋಯ್ತು ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನಲ್ಲ ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ವೇದಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ನಾದಪ್ರಿಯನೂ